News Radio 1000 KTOK. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. Well, no doubt, if you listen to this show, you know that I am following the developments regarding the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority and the Pike Off OTA organization. And most recently, the Oklahoma Supreme Court decided to make a ruling. Joining me tonight is Randy Carter. He is the Director of Strategic Communications for the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation. Also, you can find out more information on their websites and Facebook page, Pike Off OTA, and let's see, No More Turnpikes. I have to get all the different organizations. Randy Carter, I know this is why I wanted to talk to you. The district judge ruled twice in your favor that they had violated open meetings, obviously, willingly.
Yeah.
And yet the Oklahoma Supreme Court came back and said, no, they didn't.
Yes, that is exactly what happened. It was a 5-3 ruling, so it wasn't unanimous by any means. That the Oklahoma Supreme Court overturned Judge Olson's ruling that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority had willfully violated the Open Meetings Act. Now, if you count Judge Olson, it's in with those other three, it's 4-5. So, but and in the dissenting comments from the three justices that voted against overturning it, they are quite succinct in saying that it was a I don't know if travesty of justice is quite the right word, but they believe that that they did indeed violate the Open Meetings Act and should have been adjudicated as Judge Olson decided back in the fall that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority had willfully violated the Oklahoma Open Meetings Act. Sorry, that's a mouthful. Yeah, we're disappointed that the Supreme Court came out and ruled that way, but in the grand scheme of things, this open meetings violation was not going to stop the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority from moving forward. What it did is it served to delay the process, and in the meantime, we were able to get some legislation passed that was favorable to our cause, but more importantly, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority has decided on their own accord back earlier this spring that they would not continue to pursue the access program at this time. They put it temporarily on hold, or I believe are the words that they used, because they were unable to enter the bond market. At this point, just because the Supreme Court ruled or overturned Judge Olson's ruling of the willful violation of the OMA, that does not mean that they can get back into the bond market at this point. It's a step they need to take to get there, but we are still waiting on the Supreme Court's ruling as to whether these turnpikes, the three turnpikes we're talking about in Cleveland County, the Tri-City Connector, the East-West Connector, and the South Extension, those are the three that are in Cleveland County, and those are the three that we are opposed to. All the other stuff on the Access Oklahoma program we're perfectly in favor of. In fact, as a regular user of the Turner Turnpike over the years, that it definitely needs to be widened all the way from Tulsa to Oklahoma City. They've done a good job initially in that section from Tulsa to, I believe, about Kellyville. They've widened it to 6 lanes, 3 lanes on each side. But we're not opposed to any of that kind of stuff. But they did bundle that in with the 3 turnpikes that we are opposed to. So consequently, they can't do any work. They can't get into the bond market to do any work on those projects that they want to do. I believe also included in that are some widening or some additional exits on and off ramps on the Indian Nations Turnpike. And I'm not sure exactly what else is in that because, frankly, we weren't particularly interested in those things. Our main concern was the 3 turnpikes that go through Cleveland County that we believe still are not legally authorized, and that's what the Supreme Court is going to decide. Just recently, they came back to the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. As you recall, the Turnpike Authority's southern extension route crossed Federal Bureau of Reclamation land, which basically is the land that Lake Thunderbird is on, and they asked for the route originally crossed two spots of Lake Thunderbird fee title land. It didn't actually go over the lake. I suppose if the lake was filled to its fullest capacity, it would be in those areas. But nonetheless, it's land that's owned by the Bureau of Reclamation. The Bureau of Reclamation denied the Turnpike authorities application to cross their lands with these new turnpikes. Specifically, it's the southern extension. The other two do not cross any fee title land concerning or near Lake Thunderbird that I'm aware of. So they still do not have permission with this southern route. But the Supreme Court came back last week or week before this ruling, and they put out an order to the Turnpike Authority to explain what they were going to do as a result of that denial by the Bureau of Reclamation. They've given them until June 15th to respond to that. So we know there won't, well, we don't know, but it seems highly unlikely that there will be any decision from the Supreme Court before June the 15th. So and I'm sure once they get that information, they'll have to chew on it for a while before they come to a decision as to what they're going to do. So,
well, as shocking as the open meetings ruling is, it makes everybody ask this question. Can the Supreme Court of Oklahoma overrule everybody else? Because you mentioned the legislation that was passed by both houses and sent to the governor. He vetoed it. It went back, and then they overrode his veto. So, I mean, congratulations to the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation for getting the attention and educating our legislators about what was going on. But if the Supremes come back and say, hey, we're the almighty Supremes, can they just make everything else go away?
Well, you mean as far as these turnpikes are concerned?
Yes.
I suppose yes. If they do not, the Supreme Court, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority has applied to the Supreme Court, the Oklahoma Supreme Court, to validate, to authorize these three routes that are in contention. And yes, the Supreme Court could authorize them. They could say no, they're not authorized. We feel like that the arguments are very strong that they won't be authorized. If you read the statute, the one thing that the Oklahoma legislature has over the Turnpike Authority is that they have to approve all the routes that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority proposes.
That's what I thought.
And the way the approval reads from the legislature that the Turnpike Authority is banking on is if you read it and then you look at the route, it really is completely off. There's no, in the way the legislation authorizes a turnpike, it goes from west to east through Cleveland County as an extension for the southern extension. But if you look at their route, it goes basically north to south. It does not mention Purcell, the vicinity of Purcell, or anything like that. It's pretty specific of the way it's described, and the way the route is drawn is almost 180 degrees perpendicular to what they have. The route they've drawn is almost perpendicular to what is authorized. So we can't see. I mean, again, we don't know what they're going to do. We're hoping they rule in our favor. But if you read the legislation and you look at the route that's proposed, I just can't see how they can rule in the Turnpike Authority's favor that is what the route is authorized.
Randy Carter is my guest. He is the strategic communicator for the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation. We'll ask him more. So we are talking about now the most recent development that will be coming, that it's now time for the Turnpike Authority to answer questions to the Supreme Court and then more will happen. So, Randy, if I remember correctly, you quoted John Paul Jones. We have we have just begun to fight. Is that right?
Yes. It was a little bit of a setback for us that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority was not violating the violation. The Supreme Court overturned. It was a little bit of a setback for us, but again, we knew that this open meeting violation was not something that was going to completely stop the turnpikes. It was something that has given us time to get involved in things that we do believe could stop the turnpike from causing this devastation through Cleveland County. But we're still in the ball game. We have not yet begun to fight. Actually, we put up a pretty darn good fight.
Well, but I think one of the things that your website and your Facebook page and all that is pointing out is they are really dedicated to going ahead with this project. It's just going to be somewhere else. So the rally cry is, if you live anywhere near any of this, you need to start paying attention, because they are committed to moving it one way or the other. Is that correct?
That's the way I understand it. That's their stand. That's what they keep saying. I believe, and this is just pure speculation. I mean, I've been studying this quite a bit. I talk to a lot of people, and I talk to people with the Turnpike Authority. I go to their monthly meetings on a regular basis, and so I have a little insight as to what maybe I think their thinking is. If they are indeed going to avoid the Bureau of Reclamation land in Cleveland County and intend to go through with this project, and they want to keep the turnpike on the west side of Lake Thunderbird, then they will have to move this southern extension over at least a mile to the west, and maybe two. It just depends on a number of factors that I really don't know for sure how they're going to decide this. We tend to think that there's influence from outside parties that want the turnpike to go as far east as it can, as close to the lake as it can, but still stay west of the lake. But in order to avoid the fee title lands that belong to the Bureau of Reclamation, they will have to go at least west of 72nd Street in Norman. And they, from my best understanding, is they will try to keep this as straight a line as possible till it veers back off towards the west and connects with I-35 just north of Purcell.
And so really, people just need to pay attention. And is it even possible that they could find a route that would not be so offensive, not disrupt 600 families, is there a place anywhere that they could do this?
Well, we've seen some drawings. We've had some people that have made some drawings that show that if they move the southern extension a mile west, that it'll take fewer homes. It's still going to take people's homes and property. That's just the way these things work. And if it moves 2 miles west, I believe it'll take, and I don't quote me on this, but the two different routes, one of them will take 61% fewer homes, and the other one would take 41% fewer homes than the current route that has been denied. So again, I don't know what they'll decide to do. I mean, during the hearing at the Supreme Court, where our lawyers argued on our behalf, one of the questions the judge, and I believe it was the Chief Justice that asked this question, basically he asked if we were okay if we split up the projects. In other words, gave them permission to get into the bond market for everything else, not these 3 turnpikes, or it could be just one of the turnpikes, or it could be 2 of the turnpikes, or maybe, again, I don't know. They were indicating that they were considering the idea of splitting this thing up. So again, there's a lot of what ifs and a lot of things to be determined, and we are anxiously awaiting what we hope will be a favorable ruling on our part that says these three. And again, the Supreme Court is not trying to decide if the turnpikes are needed or they're beneficial. What the Supreme Court has to decide is if they are legally authorized. So, and that is based on the law. Again, like I said, the southern extension, it's our contention, and I mean, if you just follow what the law says and what the proposed route is, that's not what the legislation authorized. Now, on the other two extensions, the contention is just a little bit different. The East-West Connector and the Tri-City Connector were authorized, I believe, back in 1987 when work on the Kilpatrick and what they called the Outer Loop projects were authorized by the legislature. But in that authorizing legislation, it says that all four of the projects listed, which include these two that we're concerned about, that all four of these projects had to be completed under one bond issuance. And that bond issuance has already been done, and those other two legs were completed, and these two legs were not completed, so therefore they are not valid. They are no longer valid. That their legislative approval has expired is basically the contention of the case, as I understand it. But again, I am not a lawyer, so I can't say for sure what's going to happen.
Let me ask one other thing. The Key Tam lawsuit was to make the money recovered that they paid the engineers already ahead of time and make them recover that and give it back to the state. Is Key Tam over?
I don't know the answer to that. I suspect it is, but I've also heard that it may not be. So I don't know the answer to that. That's one of the things that we'll have to wait on and see as well. Hey, Gwin, before we go, I do want to mention our Family Fun Night coming up on June the 11th, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
We're having a family fun night at Royal Bavaria Restaurant, which is at 3401 South Sooner Road. And it's a fundraiser and just a fun night for families to get together. There'll be a silent auction. The proceeds from the meal, there's a buffet, and I'm not sure what the price is. I think it's about $17 a person, which is a great bargain at Royal Bavaria. But all the proceeds of that, Andy there at Royal Bavaria is going to donate back to Pike off OTA and Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation. So if you have any desire to support our cause, which we'd greatly appreciate, come out to Royal Bavaria beginning at 5 p.m. Sunday, June the 11th. That's next Sunday, a week from tonight. We'd love to see everybody out there and supporting our cause. There'll be entertainment, live auction and a silent auction, and just a chance to get to meet and greet people that have been involved in this battle for well over a year. It'll be lots of fun. We did one last year, and this is our second annual. We had a great time last year, raised a lot of money, and the money does go towards these legal costs. And it's not cheap. It's not cheap to bring a lawsuit to bear, especially when it goes to the Supreme Court. So,
well, and you all are remarkable citizens. You are volunteers. You are doing this because you care. And I'm sorry, I will have to be here at the station, but I would love to come and meet my heroes, because there's so many in your group that are my heroes for standing up and challenging. The way it was handled was just not right, and it's not right. And yes, I do drive on turnpikes too, but certainly there has to be a better way. So I will encourage everyone else June the 11th to go to Royal Bavaria and support this very worthy cause. And Randy, as always, I appreciate your time. Any other things you want to throw out there?
Well, we still do have the audit that Attorney General Gettner Drummond ordered, an investigative audit against the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, and that I know is in the works, and things are moving on that as well. So we're interested to see what findings come out of that.
Me too. Oh, that's exciting. Okay, Randy Carter is the Director of Strategic Communications for the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation. You can also find him on Facebook at Pike Off OTA. You can find out some wonderful information at No More Turnpikes. And as always, thank you, and I hope you'll shake all my heroes' hands and tell them how much I appreciate them.
Will do, Gwyn. Hey,
right, good
thanks
luck.
for having me on.
All right, bye-bye.